So without further ado, let's give a round of applause for Dr. Trent.
All right. Thank you, everybody. If you guys were at Glenn's keynote this morning, you're going to get a little bit of a review. He kind of covered almost exactly what I was going to say without seeing my slides about this, because this is one of the new ways that we've adding to the product to allow you to get data out of VT-SCADA in real time to other systems. And we were calling it the Sparkplug B publisher. So first things first, what is Sparkplug B? If you were at my talk this morning, this might be a bit of a repeat, but at least the screen won't be flickering this time. So it's based on MQTT, which is a telemetry transport. It's not a full protocol. It gives you some headers and some rules for how messages get sent back and forth, but it leaves one part of the message, the payload, blank. There's no rules on what can be in there. You could put JSON in there, you could put encoded binary in there, or you could build something else on top of it. It's a publish-subscribe model. So the way it works is there's a central MQTT broker that all the traffic is going to go through. So people who want data from somebody else will subscribe to the broker, and then people who have data to offer will publish to the broker. And the way they link data between publishers and subscribes is through what they call topics. Topics are just a name string that says, I want to subscribe to this topic, topic A. So if anybody publishes anything on topic A, I can get it. That works great if you control both the hardware and software, and you can design both ends around it. It gets tricky if you're working with, say, multiple manufacturers and things like that. Everybody might go their own way, may not come up with things. And the other thing to note about MQTT is because it's a publish-subscribe model, data flow is typically initiated by the end device, the device reporting the data, the one that has something to say. It's not like, say, Modbus where you can go and say, hey, tell me what you have. That's typically not how you're going to use MQTT. It's usually going to be based on, hey, I have some data, I'm going to push it up here, and anybody who's listening and cares about it will get it. Which is why it says report by exception is kind of the name you see for protocols like that. So Sparkplug B is a layer that goes on top of MQTT that basically helps define some rules that we can take what the transport does well, the publish-subscribe model, and make it so different manufacturers, different devices can all work together under one rules. It's an openly available protocol. And like I said, it's a specification on how to format both your topics, so the names that kind of say this is what this data may be about, and also what the data that's included in the payload, how it looks. It uses Google Protobufs as the encoding underneath the hood, and it has different message classes that we'll talk about as we go along. But yeah, it allows DICEs to communicate a common framework. Everybody can know the same thing because it's an openly published spec. You don't have to pay for it. You can go find it online and download it. And the other thing that Sparkplug B does for you is you only have to configure the end device. You don't have to configure your hardware and then go back and configure your SCADA software to get them to talk together. You configure the hardware once, and what it does is it publishes out all the information about itself. So it'll say, this is all the information we'll be sending you. You can then create the tags underneath it. If you saw my demo this morning, you would have saw some tags automatically be created from the Raspberry Pi I had set up. We'll see some similarities here. I'll be using a different data source. I'll be using the publisher as my data source this time instead of the Raspberry Pi. So you can see how you can maybe share data between VT-SCADA applications. Yeah, again, delivered by edge nodes. And for those that may not know, this is the formatting of the data for a Sparkplug B topic. You have, is the mouse on there? No. You have the protocol, Sparkplug B v1, that's the protocol identifier. And then there's 4 other pieces of information. 3 of them are required. You need to have a group ID. This would be kind of something like energy or plant data or something like that. Command ID, which is, there's a set of listed known commands within Sparkplug B. These are things like D data for device data, N data for node data, D command and N command for sending commands back and forth. A node ID, which identifies basically the device that's doing the publishing. Typically, at least that's the way we've implemented VT-SCADA. You have a node is the one that actually sends the messages, and devices live under the node and tell the node, hey, I have a message for you to send for me, and that's where you would get a device ID part of your message. So we've broken it up that way. So the way Sparkplug B works, graphics will look a lot nicer this time around. Again, central broker. This is the hub that everything is going through. So every device only needs to maintain one connection to this hub, and this hub is the one that does the routing. Traditionally, VT-SCADA has been this side of the system, the SCADA host, the one that's receiving all the data from the end nodes, where it will. And now, with the publisher, you'll be able to make VT-SCADA actually act as the other end of the communication chain, the device now, is what this will let us do. So again, typically, SCADA host will subscribe to the broker, And then at some point later in time, one of your devices will probably publish data to the broker, and then the broker forwards that back to those who have subscribed. Later on, you may have a second host come in and subscribe to get data, and then one of your devices in your network will publish data. So again, this device only has to send one piece of data to the broker, and then the broker is actually the one that forks it out and sends it to all the subscribers that are there. Very, very simple kind of diagram to understand the data flow of why you might want to use this, because instead of device B having to send 2 messages for the data to get the hosts A and B, it only has to send the 1 message, and the broker is the one that does it out. So everybody's only maintaining 1 connection there. So that's kind of one of the powerful things behind this. So what is the publisher in terms of VT-SCADA? It's actually a set of 2 new tags, like I kind of hinted at earlier, to allow publishing existing I/O data that you're collecting in VT-SCADA out in MQTT broker. So you maybe have a Modbus driver or a Rockwell driver or something else collecting data from a physical PLC, and you want to be able to share that data out via Sparkplug B or MQTT. These 2 new tags are how you're going to set up and do it. There's the node tag and the device tag that are used to organize the data in the topics, right? Because as I mentioned, there's topic structures that are defined within Sparkplug B. We have to somehow map our data that we have in VT-SCADA into that. That's what we'll use the node and device tags for. You'll see that when I go into my other application and set up the demo. And then beyond that, we also then use the tag hierarchy is actually how we define the metric names, if you're familiar with Sparkplug B. The topics are the kind of headers that say this is data set and this is going to be grouped together. The metrics are the data that's carried within the payload. Not every message has to have every metric in it. You can have sparse metrics sent out. So if only one thing's changed, you only send out that one value. You're not going to send out, say, all 20 if there's 20 different values on that topic, potentially. That's why you want to use Sparkplug B, because you can send sparse messages and only as needed. So like I said, this is basically converting VT-SCADA from being the host side, which we've traditionally been, to being the publishing device edge node side. So like I said, our current client driver acts as a SCADA host, and you'll see that here when I go to do some demo. And I'm working off a development branch, so you'll see some new things going on, but we are going to allow incoming commands to come into your SCADA system as well. It's optional. It defaults to off for security reasons. You probably don't want people remotely sending you commands to your PLCs mostly, but there may be some users that actually want that functionality, so it's going to be something that you can configure if you wish, but defaults to not having it. So why would you want to use a Sparkplug B publisher? The first one, and like I said, Glenn stole at the keynote, you want to share data potentially between applications of VT-SCADA. You may have several distributed resources, each running their own VT-SCADA application, but there's some piece of information, like Glenn said, energy, that you may want to aggregate across all your facilities in one location. Currently, like you said, master and subordinate applications are one way that you would do this. But when you do master subordinate, you end up usually getting all the tags from your other application available to you. And if you only care about, say, the energy values and not anything production-wise, it's a really rather heavy way to do this, because you're being sent all the data for that system instead of just the data you actually care about. So if you're thinking VT-SCADA to VT-SCADA, this is one of the applications for this. And again, you may have other systems that can connect in and collect data over MQTT or Sparkplug B. Maybe you have some other business application that can talk this protocol and scrape data that way. Would be another reason to use it. Example I'm going to give is VT-SCADA to VT-SCADA, because that's what we do. So just a note, I'm going to go into a demo here now. Like I said, this is still pre-release. I am working. You'll see some of the features Glenn was talking about. As I go on the screen, you'll see some things maybe in a different order, like properties maybe at the top, not the bottom. You'll see that little button by name, because I'm working off a development branch here. But just to kind of give you guys a chance to see how to set it up and how it works. So yeah, so that's kind of the background of Sparkplug B. Is there any protocol level Sparkplug B questions before I go into the tag setup? Sounds like you guys are ready for me to show this thing in action. So I've set up on my VAM, I got 3 apps. I have 2 of them running right now. I'm going to start with my Plant A application, where you're producing, maybe you're monitoring values about your motors, but you're also maybe monitoring the energy used production line. And these are the tags that perhaps you want to get out to another application, because you want to aggregate how much energy your company is using as a whole. You may be really this. You don't need it. So if you want to set up your app out, you're going to add 2 new publisher tags. Find them. If you go, when this is out and available, you'll go under the new child. You'll see that there will be a new grouping of tag types called publishers. Within here, The two that we're going to talk about are Sparkplug Edge Node and the Sparkplug Edge Device. Like I said, you need an Edge node in your system. This is the one that's going to be doing all the actual comms for us. The devices are just a way to let us group down to that device level so we can break up the topics and break up the data into smaller chunks. So you can have, say, 10, 20 devices, or you could do it by PLC. You may have one tag for your application, and then maybe a device tag per PLC that you maybe want to share data from or something like that. It's really going to be application dependent. But the idea with having these two tags is to allow you to configure your topics in a way that makes sense for you to send your data out. I've already configured a couple of these tags to set up. I'll start with the node tag. Yeah, I almost went to the bottom for properties because that's an old habit. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So basically, normal config folder, opening tab, name, area description, help key, SCADA, first tab for everything. When we come in here, we come to connection tab. So this is where you can set up the parts of the protocol that you need. First, you'll see the node ID that you want to set up for your application. I set this one up as energy. That's the node part of the protocol, the topic that we're looking at. Then your group ID, you can set up group IDs within it. MQTT client ID, this is your identifier to the broker, to who you are for managing connections and things like that of the MQTT protocol. And then the other field that you'll likely potentially fill in is the SCADA host ID. This would be the identifier of the host system that you're expecting that you want to publish your data to. I'm leaving it blank for now, and it works when you leave it blank. So this would be the identifier. This is the field that if you open up, and I'll show this when I get a little later. You see the exact same field is in our MQTT client driver, where we specify what our host ID is. That way you can copy it out to end devices. The idea here is once the node connects to the broker, it actually waits for a topic based on the host ID to say that the host is actually ready for data live. If you leave it blank, we'll just publish, I believe, when you first connect to give you that option if that's what you want. And there's a couple other basically just connection things, like how often should we be pinging the MQTT server to make sure it's still there? How many times should we reconnect if we lose it? The active D data publish counts is basically how many things will buffer in memory when we're sending out. Typically, if things are working, if you're not generating data at a rate that SCADA has to struggle to keep up with, if you're using report by exception setup correctly, ideally you're not sending hundreds of messages a second or things like that, so you hopefully don't need a large number here, but it's configurable depending on what your needs are. And then the timeout. And you'll see here, there's a start publishing flag, start tracing, which is kind of internal debug logs, which you're probably familiar with from some of our other drivers. And then this is like I said, the optional command to allow writes to come in to you instead of only publishing data out. So it defaults off like that. So this is kind of just setting up information about your node. And then the server tab is where you can configure your brokers. Maybe we'll rename this the brokers tab. I don't know if server is the right term that I'm looking at this. Like I said, this still could change. So you can figure how many different brokers you want to be able to talk to. In this case, I only have one broker available to me, so I only set up one, but you can scroll through and set up, it's up to 5, I believe, we support currently. It is 5, Sammer? Thank you. Up to 5 redundant brokers. I've set up one, so when you want to configure your broker, you click on the broker you need. This is where you set up the username and password for the broker itself, and then the port tag to talk to it. I'm just running a HiveMQ broker on my local laptop. So if you just look at my port tag, if I go to properties, just localhost 1883, which is 1883 is the standard unencrypted port for Sparkplug B. I think it's 4883 for encrypted. But yes, you should use TLS. And TLS would be configured here on the port SCADA. In case that's a question you're thinking of, you'll configure TLS on your port, not within this interface. So that's what you do to set up the node. And at this point, you can put tags and link them to the node and get them to publish out. But for this demo, you're typically going to also want to include a device. So what I also have here is I made an edge device. Yeah, you'll see if you look at the tag types here, Sparkplug Edge Node. Have a look. Again, same initial field. When you go to Connection tab, this is where you link your devices to your nodes. Right? So the nodes are going to get a subscription from the device, say, hey, or the device subscribes to the node saying, hey, I want to use you as my messenger, so you're going to add me onto your strings when I tell you to send data out. And this is where you can specify the device ID. And again, you can even control down to this level. And this is a way that if you only want a handful of I/O to actually allow incoming writes, you can specify them all under one device and maybe call it writes allowed as your device. So that way maybe there's only 5 tags on this one that will actually accept writes coming in and nothing else will. This is kind of one of the ways you can segregate and set that up going forward. And then you'll notice there's this buffering tab. Some information about how big a payloads and things to build. So you can specify how many metrics or how many values you want to report within a single message. You can figure out maybe you want to wait a little while for them to build up the send out so you're sending fewer messages instead of publishing right away. You can specify how far you're willing to let VT-SCADA back up if it's struggling to keep up in terms of tag values. Say it really goes wonky way too fast and you're trying to publish it all out. This will be how long you can let it back up. Typically, like I said, if you're in a well-functioning system, you probably don't need to be in this tab, other than maybe the time to wait before publishing is probably the only field in here you're typically going to want to hopefully have to adjust. So that's great. I have 2 tags here now, but right now I don't have any tags publishing out because I have nothing linked to my device yet. If I had child tags underneath it, they would automatically use this as their publisher, just like how we inherit drivers via the star driver, star publisher that we can install. You can do linkage, and if you go to when that feature becomes enabled, you can also do this via sibling tag. So you could have your I/O being siblisher instead of help, like you said, make your tag trees much more compact. Have to use that feature, but it's just an option that's going to be there. But the other, wherever you want your I/O device to read from, right? It doesn't have to driver. You can do the exact same thing for publish energy total tag. When you want to link an I/O tag to a publisher, if you're not using the native inheritance that VT-SCADA supports, it will be under the well, in my case, I'm using calculations to generate data. It would be the I/O tab if you're reading from a real PLC. I'm just using a very simple to generate some data on the screen. But you'll see down here, there's the publisher field. So you can, just like when you go to link a driver, you can click on the tag. If you go up to the root and show children all the potential publishers you can link to, I'm not going to change my selection. I already have set up that I want to publish it out on line A because I've set this up as the energy data on line A for use for this. Quickly, something most of you are probably very familiar with. That's the idea. We try and keep this in a familiar feel and flow that it won't. So at this point, I have my app set up now. I got the publisher tag. I got some I/O linked to it. It's actually publishing data out. I'm going to switch over, and I'm going to go to the company energy monitor. And in this application, I've set up a MQTT client driver, right? So if we look at the properties of this, this is the standard data. And Sparkplug B, kind of click through the demo here in a little bit. I wanted to make sure that this app was running. I would copy the string ID publisher tag. I'm not the identifier of the system that wants the data, and that to the one that's publishing it to make sure it only publishes if the other. So this is just there. And what you'll notice here, and I can probably split screen this a little bit. And put plant A on that side. Where's the edge of this?
You know what would be helpful if they were different colors, so
Yeah,
you could tell the difference between.
Okay, Andrew, just for you, we'll go in and we'll make the energy monitor app a different color. For those that took the advanced course this week, you'll know where I'm going to do this. We'll make it lime green, like touchpads. But there we go. I should have put a comment, but I didn't.
FYI, Andrew is colorblind and can't see the difference anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, so okay. So my receiving app is green. So this is the app where I have the Sparkplug B current driver in the product to collect data. And my publishing app will be the one that's in gray. And if I get my Sparkplug B data, what you should be able to see is if you look at, say, the electric total value, it'll update here. It's every 5 seconds, then mirrors over here. So this is the data going out to the MQTT broker that I'm running on my machine and coming back in the other app. So this is kind of how you want to maybe set this up so you can get data from one VT-SCADA application to another, and I'm only publishing the tags that I've linked to that publisher. I'm not publishing all the tags in this app. You don't see any production data coming in, right? You only see line A electrical energy total because that's the only tag that I've got set up. Some of the other tags you see here are automatically generated by the publisher tags themselves. There's certain properties that an edge device or an edge node needs to have to be Sparkplug B compliant. That's where you see things like rebirth and monitoring tags showing up for both the device and the node. Those are part of the spec. VT-SCADA will create those automatically for you when you have these tags in place. You don't have to worry about configuring this, and we will respond to that. So if somebody sends us a rebirth command, we will send out all the data to them. That's already built in place to be compliant with the spec. Because I know they've been testing against there's a test bed, Eclipse test bed that they've been doing compliance testing against that make sure our edge device and node is compliant with that test framework. So that's there. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to show is, okay, so I got one I/O point showing up. Yes, Mervyn?
So if we have automatic tag creation, can we have automatic publishing as well?
No.
Hold on just a second. So the question was, if you have automatic tag creation, can you have automatic publishing as well?
I guess once you set up the publisher, if you put all your I/O underneath it, they'll automatically connect to it and publish out, would be how you would do it. Okay. All you have to do is check the start publishing box that you saw on the tags. As long as that's checked, any I/O that are built underneath that context should link to it and start publishing out. You do need to set up the one or two tags within the system, but yeah, that's minor. Yeah, well, that's what you're going to see here. All I have to do, say I want more of my line A data showing up. Say maybe I want the gas value showing up in the other application. All I got to do is go to Properties, Calculation, and you can see I don't have this link to a publisher right now. If I pick that line A publisher up here, the Sparkplug B edge device, hit Select, Apply, gas energy total, now coming across. So just a matter of linking it. Just a matter of linking it there. One thing you may be wondering is the tag names coming over here. They're relative to where tags are in the tree. If an I/O tag is underneath the publisher directly, we can shorten the path that we use for the metric component name, which is what VT-SCADA parses to create the tag tree automatically. So if you're trying to keep that part short, you're going to want the I/O tags underneath the publisher, because that's the only way we can tell where it is in scope. Otherwise, we have to go to the root of the tree and build it out. So that's why you'll see these look like pretty long tag names. There's another option you can do to get data in here. If you didn't want to use automatic publishing, there is another way. We do collect the data that you can actually use the import tool instead. So you can hit the import, and it'll show you all the things that we've received birth messages for, and you can pick and choose from this. So maybe you don't need all this other information about the next server rebirth controls. Maybe that's something you don't care about. You're probably better off using the import tool, picking the I/Os on your second app that your first app is published, and getting the subset of the tree that you want. And then when you do it this way, you can then cut and paste these wherever you want in the tree. And as long as you're not adjusting the address field, it'll still get the data. They don't have to be in this part of the tree. The downside to automatic tag creation is if I did cut and paste a tag out of here, the next time a birth message came in, it would rebuild it, because VT-SCADA would go, hey, I don't see a tag here, I should add it. So that's the only downside to leaving automatic tag creation on. It's really a great tool initially to set up. And then typically, I would say once you know you have everything in, turn it off. Or turn it on for select periods. If the question was if I disable a tag, in which app? The receiving app or the publish? In this application here, if I delete a tag in the app that's receiving data or disable it, I'll disable it. It probably won't do anything unless I trigger unless something triggers a rebirth back out. Disabling the tag will trigger the yes, it would, because it would rebuild the blocks. Oh, yeah. No, we won't actually recreate the tags. I'm almost certain under the hood VT-SCADA can see disabled tags, and it knows that tag is actually there in the system, so it's not going to recreate it. Because it can detect that there's a disabled tag. They call them ghost tags under the hood. So any tag that's disabled in your system, we still know about when we go to try and create new tags, so we wouldn't create a second tag if you just disable it. If you deleted it, it would come back, but not disabled. So can you repeat that?
It's sort of like a part of the tag.
Yeah. So the question was, what if I delete the tag on the publisher side of things? It's not going to, it would send us a new birth message, but we don't automatically delete tags when we get new birth messages in. You would just stop getting data on that tag, is what I would expect to happen. I'll disable it instead of deleting it, and yeah, the gas energy total tag didn't go away on this end. Like if I show disabled, you'll see that the gas energy total is there. It's going to sit here because it's not going to get any, the node didn't go offline, so it's just going to be stuck with the last known value, because that's the last thing that was published for that metric on that topic.
So it's held in the broker, then the broker's kind of maintains that value.
The value, no, it's not necessarily held in the broker, because Sparkplug B doesn't take advantage of retain for most messages. On these topics, they're not retained. It would be more so on the birth message that gets sent out. There would be no, basically when I disable the total tag on my publisher side, it'll trigger us to send a new birth message out saying, hey, here's now the new list of things I have. Because energy total is missing, we don't just automatically delete what's over here, and we don't invalidate it either. We just leave you with the last known value that came in on that tag. That's just kind of the decision we've made with how to handle that. Maybe it makes more sense to invalidate. There's no clear-cut answer on what the best behavior is on that, so we've gone the route of keeping as much current information as possible. Stale. Yeah, and that's something that we could potentially do actually going forward in the product is we familiar with some of the other protocols. We are starting to add what we call status flags. Like most of you are probably familiar with the questionable flag on data, or if you set manual data, you get a different symbol. Under the hood, we've been adding more and more status flags, and that MQTT is one of the ones that we could take advantage and maybe set that as stale. I don't think we have a good UI to show that currently, but that's
something I would appreciate. Right now, it's set alarms for, it hasn't changed in this long, maybe check on it.
yeah. The other way you could achieve the question was if setting stale flags for alarms to check on it. Rate of change tag can kind of do that too for you. If the value hasn't changed in X amount of time, you can trigger an alarm on that. So there's other ways you can maybe do that, but the stale, having the data marked as stale as in the driver hasn't seen anything in a while on that would be another way to achieve that. So I'm just going to turn this tag back on, and we should start seeing the data updating again. Because what will happen is we'll send a new birth. Yeah, the moment it came back on, data starts updating again, because we would have sent out the new birth when the tags change. To do that, other thing I can do, I'm going to set up a second device. Like I said, I just did bare basic setup. I can show expanding the system. So let's add another Sparkplug B edge device, and we'll just call this one line B. You'll see our edge devices can inherit the nodes if they're built underneath them, just like drivers and things like that, so I don't have to set up anything there other than the device ID. So I'm going to call this one line B. And then the buffering, I'm going to put that down to 1 second. I want my data to update quickly. Like I said, some of these defaults we may adjust before it goes live. I found waiting 30 seconds to see your data show up is annoying personally. We may want to turn that one down. So now what I can do is I can go in. I don't have tags in line B, but that can be fixed. They should. I will set up some units on the line B tags here first before I link them to the publisher. So let's say the electrical total energy, or did I set that up? Display. Yeah, okay, I do already have units here. So the electric energy total on this side here. They didn't get, yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's an application setting that you can do that in. That's right, Samra, thank you. Because unfortunately the units, it's sent in a key value property pair in Spark. If you know Sparkplug B, there's key value pairs of information that can be attached to it. We have a default key we look for units that we scrape out. We should probably set ourselves up to just default work. These are the kind of things that kind of shake out from these presentations when it's still not fully released code. These are the edge of edge things that functionally you're getting 99% of what you want here. It's like, yeah. Because yeah, I would have thought the units came across, but yeah, they it's definitely doable in VT-SCADA because we have application settings to specify this is the key that will carry the units value into it, and we'll scrape them out if it matches. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's there. Yeah, that is something the protocol does support, that you can do that. And we try and scrape out as much information from that property set that's sent to us. It's just that that's one of the few things they hadn't specified very well, is what the key should be for different pieces of information. Which is probably why you're asking the question, right? So yeah, we do have an application property that if you have different devices that use a slightly different, maybe they use unit versus units or something like that, you can specify the exact key you want to use for that. I know we put that in when we did the driver support for Sparkplug B initially. So I'll cancel back out of this. So I don't want to import those, but I was going to get line B, import the import. So yeah, so I'm just going to go and link this electric total energy tag to, oh, that's why I shouldn't have copied and pasted the tag. It kept the link to the other, because the tag I copied was already linked, it keeps all the same information. I know there's a reason why we tell people don't copy paste in VT-SCADA unless you have to. Make custom templates and types and build an expression to link it properly, and that would work much better. I did not follow my own advice from the advanced course. So now you can see if I expand this name thing out, you'll hopefully kind of see the tree that got built here. So you can see now I got plant A energy, electrical energy total here now showing up in the right place. And the units don't come through currently, but that can be fixed. But you'll see that the value here is coming in. And like I said, so basically, when you're configuring your system, if you turn on auto create tags, you don't really have to do much in the app that's receiving all the data. It's mainly just configuring the app that you want to push the data out, and just let the other app create the tags automatically. And then once you have everything set up, turn off automatic tag creation, clean up whatever tags you maybe don't want or need that have shown up. And then you have a functioning system to pump data from one app to the other. And then you can continue, like I said, you may have a second plant that you want data to come in from that you can configure and set up. So basically, if you already have a bunch of distributed apps that have data that you want to aggregate, this is probably likely going to be a more efficient tool than, say, master subordinate or things. You can cherry pick the exact piece of information you want to publish across and receive at the other end. Could a live data subset of information is what this feature is going to allow you to do. Yes, you can send it to other devices that talk to it, but question at the back? No, I have a MQTT broker. I have a Hive MQ broker running on my machine as well. So you still do need a broker running in the background. It's not quite VT-SCADA directly to VT-SCADA, but it's pretty close. Because you can run the broker on the same machine as VT-SCADA, like I am doing here. I believe Mervyn mentioned that during my previous presentation, that often they'll run redundant brokers on the same machines that their VT-SCADA servers for data to come into. That's perfectly fine. The broker can run almost anywhere as long as you have network connectivity from both ends to it.
With the new sibling link architecture, would it make sense to kind of do all one content?
The question was related to the new sibling tag linking feature and where to put publishers relative to it. It should work if you put them in parallel. It's one thing that we haven't, I need to do some testing now that the sibling link thing is also available. Some of the things are being developed in parallel. We need to do our final validations and link things together. That's why we specify when you see some of us doing these demos, some things may be slightly subject to change because there's a lot going in for 12.2 that we need to do all our cross-testing, quality testing in. A lot of it's coded and functional. It's just make sure edge cases, like if you have multiple publishers, I think what'll happen with the sibling tags, and this is where we'll be on it later today, I think that's at 4. That's a good question for him, is if there's multiple publishers, how it would link. Because there is something that you haven't, there's going to be a publisher list tag. So if you want to publish data out 2 different ways, say you want to send it to Sparkplug B and maybe OPC-UA, which Glenn was talking about, the OPC-UA server. If you want to send data out multiple paths, there is going to be another tag that I don't have in here. It's called the publisher list. I didn't merge that into what I'm showing. So you can specify a list of any tags connected to this list will go out both Sparkplug B and OPC-UA. So you can structure something like that if you do, in this case, you need to publish it more than one way. It is a problem. We are aware that people are probably going to want to publish data to more than just one source. And we do have the model set up to do that. I just don't have all the pieces.
Follow-up question, can you,
Yes, that would work. So you would say you're reading data from a Modbus PLC. So your I/O would be being read from the Modbus PLC. I don't have a, yeah, you could say, I'll just make, well, you don't even need the calculation in between, Andrew. You can publish direct I/O out the publisher. The publisher option and the driver option are two independent things. Is the best way to explain it. So yeah, you'd be reading the value of that tag would be coming from the I/O device, and the publisher is just saying, hey, anytime I read a new value from this driver, I'm going to push it out this publisher, out to whoever's wanting it at that end. And for writes, it would be memory tags you can write to, and also output tags. So if you say for some reason you wanted to allow somebody to adjust a set remotely via Sparkplug B, it will be possible. But again, that's something you have to opt into. It's going to default, don't want that to happen. But we have had requests for that kind of functionality within the publisher tag to allow us to be a true edge node and take commands in. We did the phase one approach of let's get the data out. That's what most people are going to want to see. So that's what I'm kind of showing here. The checkbox is there. I haven't actually tested to see how it's showing it, but and the other question, how does it work? The buffering is going to be more of a phase 3 approach. So right now we'll publish, once the publishing flag is true, that's when we start publishing out and buffering data. We're still working through the best way to buffer that. If, say, internally recording a buffer and then be able to push that when we reconnect, that is in the plans. It's just not necessarily going to be ready quite for 12.2. It'll probably come out sometime during that phase. It's just a lot more complicated problem to get right and make sure we do it right the first time. So we want to at least give you guys the ability to publish data in real time, accept data in real time as the first phase. And there is plans to do the proper kind of buffering if connection is lost. And the idea would be whether we lose connection to the broker or if we see that the SCADA host has gone offline, we could buffer on that same kind of trigger condition. Yes, Mervyn? Yeah, well, yeah, you can publish to yourself application. Yeah, if you can do application, yeah, you could have you just need two separate port tags pointing at the broker. Don't use the same port tag, you will hang yourself. I learned that building this demo. Each connection to a broker needs its own separate port tag. Very easy thing to accidentally link two publishers or two drivers to the same port tag and wonder why nothing works. It's just the nature of how the receiver works and the driver that you need individual tags, port tags.
So this gives me a centralized man.
Publisher field going to be available on those type of maps?
I believe the answer is yes to that they updated. Did they update all the legacy tags have publishers? Oh, here, let me just draw one. I'll find the answer real quick. You're talking, say, like analog status? Oh, yeah, I got to go to legacy IO down. Yeah. Yeah, analog status. Yep, publisher field's there. I was pretty certain the answer was yes to that, but I knew I could actually guarantee that. Yeah, and the reason behind this is any tags that used to be publishable, we used to have the OPC-DA publisher or OPC server tag. Anything that could have been linked to that was upgraded to use this new model because we're going to be upgrading that under the hood to work with this as well. Just that way you could publish it the multiple ways. Because those of you that remember, if I was on, say, 12.163, publish would be a checkbox, not a publisher that you pick. This is kind of the enhancement to that interface to allow you to pick and choose. And that's, like I said, there's also not here, but will be available the publisher list to go for the fact that if you recall when I went to make, just click OK. Currently, there's multiple things within the publisher list. It's going to grow. These are all things that there are actually other talks about this week. The data diode, I think, right after this one. Yeah, right after this. And then OPC-DA is currently, I thought that was UA, yeah. The DA reworked to become a publisher instead of the OPC server tag is basically what would happen. You'd still have to add the server tag in your system, but this would let you link to it. So like Glenn said, this is one of the things that we're working on, and that is more ways to get data out, not just like I said, it's very easy to query historical data still currently. We still have the REST interface, ODBC, all those other tools that you guys are probably familiar with getting history data out. We're now adding more and more tools to get real-time live data out as well. All right, so thanks everybody for coming and all the great questions. You got a little bit preview, but bit more than just Sparkplug B, but just kind of a little bit of publishers in general, but it's kind of hard not to do all that in the same talk because I can't show just the Sparkplug B publisher without all the other internals we've built around it. So thanks for coming. Please remember to fill out the Whova app. Natasha, hope you enjoy the next day and a half of ScadaFest and learn a lot while you're here.